Welcome to Parenting Teens, the podcast where we navigate the ups and downs of raising teenagers. As founders of Ramp Nutritional Products for Teens, we're real parents going through the same challenges, and we bring on experts to offer unique insights and inspiration. Join our community and know you're not alone in your struggles. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Parenting Teens podcast. I am Annie Salzberg, and with me today, as always, is my business partner, friend, colleague, as I've said before, mother in arms, Simona Irwin. And we are coming to you today with what we are calling our solo, or really it's partnered podcast episode. We love so much bringing experts on to the Parenting Teens podcast. We have access. We're so grateful to have access to really a treasure trove of experts in the parenting tween and teen space. And so we love sharing that type of content with our community. And at certain inflection points, it feels really great for the two of us to pause and reflect and kind of take stock of where we're at. And when we are recording this podcast, it is back to school season for us. And it seemed like a very natural time to stop, reflect, and kind of share where we're both at and how we're feeling in this back to school season. Because every year there's new opportunities, new challenges, new learnings for obviously both kids and their parents. And we wanted to check in with ourselves and with each other. And maybe some of what we'll say today might resonate with our community. So welcome, Simona. How are you feeling today?
Thank you. Excited to be here after a technical difficulty. Take two.
Take two. Always take two. That's life.
Yeah, absolutely. Back to school is such a mixed bag. For me, I love routine. I love when, we have that routine in the morning, and I like to be able to work at my job. And I have a hard time managing all of that in the summer. So when back to school comes, a part of me is just so thrilled, and kids with their backpacks on, and I'm almost pushing them out the door, and I'm like, okay, I have my 6.5 hours now to really like double down and do what I can do. But it also brings challenges, and I have one in grade 5 and one in grade 7, and it's new, especially grade 7. We're starting to get a little bit of that great divide coming up, and like the little bit of the push away and a little bit of the attitude trying on, and so we're all adjusting to that space.
Yeah, I think that I can relate, and I can't when our older one, so our kids now are in grade 10 and grade 8. So when the older one went into grade 7, it was sort of in the height of COVID. So I don't feel as though we had none of us had typical experiences during that time. And so that typical, like what you're talking about, that progression to like that moving away, that increase in independence, the some of that, autonomy that really, I think developmentally is like really on track. We didn't really have that. We were doing online school, as were many people across the world. And so for me, there was a huge jump when he went into grade 9. I was like, oh, this is it. So I felt like we jumped this big, like, it was like the Grand Canyon. We went from 0 to 100 very quickly. But I can appreciate how you're starting to see it like trickling in, and it's exciting. And well, sorry, I shouldn't even characterize it. How does it feel for you, and how do you see it manifesting in your son? Is there sort of a guiding emotion there, or is it a mixed bag?
Yeah, not to go too far into the COVID piece,
Sure.
because none of us really want to remember that time of our lives. But I was thinking recently, actually, about exactly what you said, because another friend mentioned it, and she was saying, "Oh, actually, my older one kind of missed that developmental stage." And I don't think I really got it until just recently it clicked. And I was like, oh, yeah, of course. Like these kids just couldn't go outside or, well, here at least there was a lot of, challenges with that. And then it also made me think, well, like what were the developmental stages of my kids that like haven't noticed that they didn't get to go through too. So maybe that's just a tangent for another episode, but it has been on my mind. It's like, oh, what were the things that would have jumped ahead that maybe, I guess that would have been like grade 3 and grade 5 or something like that.
Mhm.
So anyways, just something to think about. But in terms of my son, it's just, yeah, it's more independence. It's, he wants to get on his bike. We live in a big city, like a very busy, kind of wild city at times with big city issues. And he's ready to go off into the world and he wants to hang out with his friends and go for lunch and ride his bike and all the things that I did when I was younger. And yet it feels different now for some reason. And I want him to do it. So it's
Mhm.
like all these kind of different feelings mixed into one.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, just not to it does make me just wanna put a pin in that developmental piece, and it makes me think that we should put it out to our community to see if we can bring, like, a developmental psychologist on to really talk about
Oh,
that. I think that would be really interesting. I feel like I would learn a lot from that. So,
yeah. Love that.
yeah, so maybe, like, if we kinda keep thinking about this maturation that is happening as we want to happen with our kids and stuff. It's interesting. My husband and I were talking about this the other night, kind of our approach, our unified approach, if we can call it that. Can we have a unified approach this
Yeah.
school year to when challenges invariably come up? And um sorry, so this is connected to what you're saying, but just like maybe a little bit of a build on it. And And so we're kind of, especially with our older son, we're getting to that place where we're seeing like there's a desire for independence, there's a desire for autonomy. And so how can we be loose without
Hmm.
being, we're not talking about negligence, we're not talking about, I guess this is a little in the realm of like free ranging it, but like how can we support and guide without overbearing? I mean, he's going to be 16. How can we start to comfortably move out of the way?
Yeah.
And And I think that it starts for a lot of families, like, very young, in your approach to parenting, if that's an approach. But again, you can really start to see the child kind of, like, start to assert themselves as they get older, namely in, like, grades 6, 7, 8, etcetera. So now that we find ourselves in high school, it's really it's I guess as a parent, one of the challenges and opportunities I see for myself this year is how do I get out of the way? How do I support without being the fixer, and how do I just let things happen, Anyways,
It's so hard.
it's the hardest. It's the hardest, and just, comfortably letting them go through those bumps in the road, which is
Yes.
really I mean, every age and stage has this, whether it's toddling and walking and falling, bruising your knee, getting up, whether it's learning to write, whether it's learning to read. We know that every developmental stage and every stage of childhood has its, like, own trials and tribulations. I think for
Hmm.
us, if I can speak for you and I, it's, like, feels very relevant as our kids are getting older. Now they're, like, getting into the teenage years. It feels so charged, and
Of
so, like, the
course.
stakes just keep getting higher and higher.
They
But,
feel so high, and I also think, we have I mean, we recently have been reading, obviously more about teens and what's happening in the world of teens, and we see, the rates of depression up and I think just as people, you and I, it's like we wanna get it right, or we want to maybe make it a bit different than our own childhood experiences, or we wanna make sure they have a good foundation for this kickoff, and it's like, like, where's the balance between being cool and being connected and, you know, standing in front of technology or difficult situations and backing off. And I don't know. I don't know
Or
what to do sometimes.
no, of course, but even, to the example you gave earlier, or where is the place where biking through the city is really healthy and appropriate and great, and where is it scary and not okay? I mean, again, and
Yeah.
these lines, I mean, I think that just like it reminds me when I was like when I felt like there was all the controversy of, like, sleep training when my kids were babies, like,
I
to
know.
Ferber or not to Ferber, to cry it out or not. I mean, we're sort of in, like, the teen version of that, but like you said, now we're getting into physical safety. I mean, again, people could talk
Yes.
about psychological safety in infancy, like, I get that, but we're talking about different types of
Oh my gosh, like
challenges. Yeah.
things that you would never think of, like discussions around, I mean, everything from consent to fentanyl to all these things that it's like, oh my gosh, I never imagined these coming out of my mouth, or worries that my kid's gonna have and like real or technology or overuse or, you know, like body image. And it's just, it's a lot. It feels like a lot. For
Yeah.
them too.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
a
yeah, and
lot
I
for
think
me.
and just for people who are listening, just some additional context, Simone and I were chatting a little bit before we got on today about a study that came out in the news today, um, and again, I'm not saying this to bring any listeners down, but just it was a study basically talking about, Gen Z, sorry, I've got
Yeah.
them all mixed up. The generation that's like 12 to 26 now, and how their overall mental health, um, is lower than previous generations during in comparable age groups. So when like millennials were 12 to 16, Gen X, um, 12 to 16, again 12 to 26 rather. So again, this group, this cohort, overall is experiencing, um, greater challenges around mood, namely in depression, mental health, um, suicidal ideation, like, and a lot of pretty complex and very challenging conditions. And so
Mhm.
this is sort of some of the context that this is some of the conversation that we were having earlier. Um, and so there's this, and again, it's one study, and we always have to sort of remember that and hold that. And but then again, we're trying to make meaning of it. So, like, if this could be true, so what? If this could be true, then what does that mean? Like, where's the, and as parents, I think as sort of go getters, like, we want to fix that. We want to, like, so what is the source problem? What is the trigger? And how do we solve that
Yeah.
and avoid that for our own kids? I think that's like the puzzle piece to be solved,
Yeah.
or solved for.
And should we even be avoiding and solving, right? Like, there's, like, so much. Yeah.
Right, and that's directly opposed to what I said earlier where I'm like, "I'm getting out of the way." I'm getting in one corner of my mouth, I'm saying I'm getting out of the way, and in the other, I
Yeah.
read this study and I'm like, "Simona, we have to talk about mental health and how we're gonna fix this for everybody." So,
I know.
it's like, like inhabiting these 2 things,
Yeah.
both can be true, and I think there's actually, like, that's a really big lesson for me, that a lot of these things, it's like, it's both, it's not one or the other.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I so agree. And, even when I say this and I think about both of our kids, like all of our kids, I think, while these challenges are real and true, they're also, the teens I meet and the teens I talk to, and I'm sure that's just a selection, of course, but, they're also just like really bright and aware, and they know what's going on, and they call things out for what it is, and they have an idea of, technology and AI and how it's going to change things for them already. And some of the things that they talk about are really practical and interesting. And while it creates friction and things like, the school system and how they want to learn, and how they might think some parts of learning are a bit like dumb now because it can be done for them. Um, it's almost like we're just like growing into this new stage together. And I'm trying to look at it that way too, where it's like, okay, I'm learning, you're learning, and like, let's see how this goes. And instead of being so fixated on this is how it has to look, or this is how it looked for me, it's like we're evolving into a new world all at the same time, really.
Yeah, that lands for me. This idea that none of it has to look a certain way, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's just like for me a good life lesson. Like, my parenting doesn't have to look like anyone else's. The way my kids, what my kids do in terms of after school activities, my career, like it's, again, that's just sort of like a look inside, don't look outside in terms of like what aligns with your values. So to me, that's like a good thing to kind of hold as a truth.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I don't think we've solved mental health today. But I think we've I think we've talked about like honoring their developmental stage,
Mhm.
probably like pushing the edges of our own comfort in honor of that developmental stage, right? Like
Yeah.
seeing what they need and want and kind of getting out of that way. But then also kind of remaining really cognizant about like where we can still support, because of course we are going to continue to support our kids. And then also like just doing what's right for our families and kind of playing by our own rules, which is, I think, what we really just deep down all want to do. But it's just really scary. It's really
Yeah,
scary.
it is. It's like our precious babies, right? And they grow up but they're in this, it's like big bodies, or we have boys, these, four boys, and it's like these big bodies are growing and they're like becoming more manly, and they're still, they still feel like our babies, and they still have moments of being these young kids, right? And so it's how do we work with both of those things at once?
Yeah, I will say though, and this is just like a very like light anecdote. We talk about, or you just said, like they're still our babies and stuff. So our older son, who's like a big boy and very strong and a gym and athlete kind of guy, came home yesterday and asked if he could squat with me on his back.
Oh,
So put me over his shoulders and
oh my
squatted.
god.
And I'm like, file this in parenting first. my
Did you
child's
do it?
my child squatted with me. And it's like that also is for him like a big thing. Like, I am so much bigger than my mom. I can do this. And so like,
That's
that's
an
a, like a that's a
amazing
that's like a
image.
trip. That is a trip, and that is a whole, I don't know what that needs to go, like a picture of that needs to go on a t-shirt. I need to walk around with that. I don't know what that, it even just like almost feels like, okay, now you carry me. Like, is that what's happening here? I'm just,
Yeah.
but yes, they will still be our babies, but it's like so many signs point to them sort of not being.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Every year changes a little bit more and more.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, awesome. I'm glad we were able to kind of just get some of this off our chest and kind of have this touch base. I do think we should continue to do this. I think that this school year is going to be really interesting. I can already see some stuff starting to bubble up, even though it's only week 2 in our house. And so it's probably stuff I just want to continue to sit with and share probably at a later time. But yeah, let's check in again in a few months and see how everyone's faring.
Sounds good. Good
Okay,
luck,
awesome.
everyone.
Good luck, everybody. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in to Parenting Teens. We hope you found today's episode informative and helpful. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you want to dive deep into teen-related resources, visit our website at drinkramp.com. Do you have a teen-related question? Drop it on SpeakPipe at speakpipe.com/parenting teens. As always, we're here to support you on your parenting journey. Until next time.